and it's time to talk about the terracotta warriors and how neat that is, and also like the creepy history leading up to that. Creepy is probably not the best way to talk about that. As a historian, because we are all historians, we're learning about the past. And as we learn about early China, there's definitely some traditions that they have that we're super familiar with. Like, hey, I'm gonna conquer you and take your stuff because I can. That's very common in the age of like expansion. So that's not different. But there is this really cool thing, and so there's a dude. I'm gonna put his name in the chat. All right, so we're gonna learn how to pronounce this. The Qin, that's the, in China, that's the chin sound. So Qin Shi Huang. This is a dude. Okay, you're eating food, Callie. That's okay. Pronounce it later when you're not eating food. So Qin Shi Huang, the dude, his daddy was king of like a western part of China. Well, sorry, of the provinces which aren't called China yet, right? Not called China yet. So these provinces of this like land where they all kind of look the same, their languages are kind of similar, but there's not a lot of uniformity. And I'm gonna call him Chin now because I am. And he became king at 13. Like his dad died when he was 13. He's like, oh, I'm the king now. Okay, great. And so if I tell a 13-year-old, so Kellen, my son's 13. Okay, never mind, go away. You're doing some like weird visco thing. Okay, so if you tell a 13-year-old, you are super powerful, you could conquer the world, you have everything it takes to conquer the known world. There's a 13-year-old like, hey, you know what? I think you're right. I am pretty amazing and powerful. I think I'll do that. And that's basically what happened. Like one of his prime minister's advisors says like, you could do this. And he's 13 and he believes him. And so like 10 years later, he's like conquering areas all over this Asia, the eastern part of, because he's in the western part. So he's pushing like toward Japan area. And Natalie has lots of horses. Okay, so I'm gonna turn your chat off so you pay attention to me. Pay attention to me. There we go. Okay. Ha! I have the power. I am a dictator now. Okay. So we're gonna chat just a little bit about that. But I know Natalie's like, no. Okay. So last week, I want to share my screen real fast. Last week, not everybody got me their poster in time. So I'm going to show you last week. This is lesson 3. So if you didn't get me your poster or you didn't turn in your inquiry journal, please, 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 please do that. Please, 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 please. So for week 5, we learned about the Chinese social class. And it's a feudal class, like there's definitely a top and a bottom, the haves and the have-nots. So the first thing I want to talk about is women. This is the female symbol and this is the male symbol. Women and men, both of them worked and helped take care of their elders. Your ancestors and your elders were really important. You always respected them. You showed a great amount of deference to them. You would never sass an elder. And the differences are here. Women, they worked in the fields, they took care of the kids, they educated the kids, and they managed the household. Men, they grew crops, they had government jobs, and they were soldiers, and they were responsible for the family. Okay, cool. So those are some pretty defined, and this is my little old lady grandma, my Chinese grandma. Now, the social class, we have 4 different ones. And the Shi, these are the aristocrats. These are the people that owned all the land. And then the Nong, they were farmers. They rented fields and paid money in, so they paid, not money, they paid their landlords in food. They gave them food as like, oh, thanks for letting us stay here. And there's my little bowl of rice. In the south, they grew rice. And in the north, they grew wheat and millet, which is another kind of grain. And every year, I wanted to point this out because this is important for this year. Every year, they gave the 1 month, they gave 1 month of their time every year, the farmers did, to the government to build stuff. They didn't get paid for this, they just went. So it's compulsory labor. So they had to give 1 month of their year to either build roads or walls, and I'm gonna talk about walls a little bit more because we're talking about walls today, and any building that the government might need, or an emperor might want, like a big fat tomb, which we're also going to talk about today. So I just wanted to point that out. So that is 1 month every year they had to serve and build stuff for the government. And then the Gong, those are the artisans, people that made things pretty. And then the Shang, these are merchants. And we didn't really trust them because they wanted to make money and not just like serve people and serve the government and be dutiful. So it's just a different value system in this time of early China. Cool. All right, I'm gonna open up my chat real fast. Any questions on last week's learning? Video is thumbnailed. Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing. So last week's learning. Walls. You have an Elmo at my house. I do. I brought the Elmo to my house from my classroom. Yeah, I did. So walls. So just so you know, like early China, or this early area, and some historians argue that the Qin guy we're talking about today, that's why we call the whole area China, because the dude like conquered a bunch of stuff. And because there's other provinces, other kingdoms with different names, but as Qin went through and tried to, and worked to kill and conquer these areas, that's why we call it China now. So, Alex, that's funny. Don't worry about it. It's cool. All right. So the reason I bring this up is because I want to show you one more thing. The emperor we're going to talk about today, or the king who became the emperor, he subscribed to legalism. So we have legalism, Taoism, and Confucianism. Those are the three religions or value systems that they had. And legalism, humans are evil and they need structure. They need strict laws and duty. And the ruling class is the most important, right? Making the ruling class comfortable. So the needs of the people are not important. Here, maybe I could turn it sideways. Oh yeah, look at that. So this is Qin. He was a legalist. And these three main ideas have been existing in the area for a while. So Taoism is have a simple life, don't like step on bugs, be harmonious with nature, and like there's a balance, the yin and yang, like there's a natural order to things, and that's how it is. We see it like there's death and there's rebirth, like when something dies, it fertilizes the soil, and then the soil can produce life. So that's Taoism. And this is being simple. And then Confucianism, so this is the symbol, and it's the symbol for water. So it's the belief that, the belief in Confucianism led to a duty for family and community. So we're making our community better, making our family better. Everything should be in moderation. There shouldn't be like wicked wealthy people taking everything from everybody. And also it's very important to follow all the laws and rules. Hard work, honesty, loyalty, goodness, desire, and the desire to learn. So education is still important. This, Confucianism, was pretty strong where Qin was. But again, Qin is illegal. He subscribes to legalism. So he not only burned all their books when he became into power, he also killed their scholars, so their teachers. So this was persecuted under the Qin dynasty. Under Qin dynasty. Okay, so again, if you believe people are evil and you need strict laws, well, I'm pretty sure you're going to treat them differently than if you think like, hey, let's all be a family, right? And we see that he was super tyrannical, so strict. Are you ready? I'm super excited. Okay, I'm gonna take a deep breath. Now, I want, and I'm going to stop my share. In the chat, I know, Parker, he burned the books. I said illegalist, sorry, I meant legalist. All right, in the chat, I want you to tell me an example of a good law, but it's super strict and you don't really like it, but you understand why it's there. I'm gonna say jaywalking. I understand, Parker, that's funny. Parker says school. He says compulsory education. Thank you, Parker, you're good. So jaywalking, there's a law that says you shouldn't cross the street anywhere you want. And sometimes I don't like that. Sometimes I just want to cross the street right here. But I understand why. I should cross up there because there's lights, right? That indicate to the cars that I should go there. Okay, Parker, thank you. Kath, Allie, so Allie's like stealing. Stealing is wrong and bad, and we know that, right? So why do we need a law that says we shouldn't steal when you know you shouldn't steal? Well, according to legalism, like humans are pretty awful. And you don't have to believe that, I'm just saying that's what they believe. Humans are pretty awful, so we need these strict laws. All right, who's iPhone? I don't know who iPhone is. Any other laws that you can, you're like, I don't like it, but I understand why we have it. Okay, so Holly says that in some places you have to wear a mask. You're right, it's not a law right now. They're in New York City, they did make it a law if you're out in public that you need to wear a mask. It's one of those laws though, they don't actually ticket you for it, they just really want you to do it. Some laws, like you get a ticket, like don't text and drive. I don't like that. Maybe I get a text message when I'm driving, but I understand I shouldn't check my phone right now because I'm driving, I'm doing something else. And if I do check my phone, I'm a distracted driver and I don't drive as well. So we shouldn't text and drive. We shouldn't play on our phone when we drive. And there's so much data and studies about people who are distracted by their phone or something. They hurt people, right? They like smash into other people and cars. And you know, that's, you can't take that back. Like, was that Instagram notification worth you smashing into a car and it's costing you thousands and thousands of dollars? No. So put your phone down. Do I like it? No, because I like my phone, but I understand it. It makes sense. Leah, it's illegal for a barber to hum a tune while cutting your hair. That's funny. Allie, oh, Mariah. Hey, Mariah, hey, girl. You're right, Allie. I haven't had a phone for 4 days. So the last 4 days, I haven't really needed to go anywhere, really. But anyway, so, I mean, prior to that. You can't, oh, Leah, you're so funny. So if you have me for 8th grade history, I'm really excited. I'm just gonna give you a heads up right now. If you have me in 2 years for 8th grade, we actually do a whole study of weird laws that different states have had. Like you cannot bring your donkey into town on a Wednesday, or you can't help your cow get out of a well on a Sunday. Like there's really weird laws. So anyway, something to look forward to. So that's something that I do when we learn about the states, the United States of America. Hey, Kellen, can you have me my cup of coffee? Thank you. Okay, so we just kind of reviewed a little bit of last week. Now, why? Why, Charlie, what? Charlie. Why all those laws? You know, that's a really great question. We will talk about that during 8th grade history. Right here. Thank you, sir. Sure, thank you. My son is so helpful. He's 13 and very impressionable. Honey, you could conquer the whole world. You have the opportunity because you are powerful and your enemies are weak. Be like Chin. He is a king of a Western territory in Asia, and he like conquered everything. He's the guy that has the terracotta warriors buried with him. That guy. All right, so now we're gonna talk about this. Terracotta warriors. Hey, do you guys know what I'm talking about? Give me a thumbs up if you know what I'm talking about. I say terracotta warriors.
Yes.
I got a yes. I got a thumbs up. Yes, I got a yes. Okay, these are crazy. So this guy Qin, who we're talking about right now, Emperor Qin Shi Huang, he is that 13-year-old who was told by his prime minister's advisor, like, you can do it all, get him. And he did some cool stuff, he did some sketchy stuff, but again, remembering he loves legalism, right? Hold on, let me write that down in the chat. Everyone is a legalist. Now, according to legalism, let's remember, who's the most important people? My 13-year-old just shouted it out. That's funny, Holly. So yeah, the ruling class is the most important, and you're bad. So you should follow all these strict rules because you need strict rules. So Qin, he's like conquering areas and he's super paranoid and people are trying to kill him. So that's always fun. But I wanted to take a little tiny trip before I go through our inquiry journal notes to his tomb. Now, you ready? Let's go. I'm so excited. Okay, where am I gonna find it? Here it is. So the terracotta warriors are these, okay, so real quick. These clay statues aren't uncommon, but having an entire army of them is. That has not happened before. So let's, oh, that's not a great picture. Let's see if we can find a better one. So there was an entire army of these life-size clay statues, not just like two, like an army of them. And all of this was buried under the dirt, the size of a pyramid from Egypt. So this massive like hill, difference of a hill and a mountain is a hill is under 1,000 feet, mountains are over 1,000 feet, side note. So when they discovered these life-size terracotta warriors, and if you've read 39 Clues, or what was the other one we read? The terracotta warriors. Anyway, they go find these and it's very exciting. So the purpose of these clay statues was the Emperor Qin, he believed that they would join him in the afterlife and help him continue they'd protect him and continue his conquest, and they were a sign of power and prestige. And that's pretty crazy. So these were discovered in 1974. So this tomb here, this one that I'm talking about. And they are still digging. Did you know that? They're still digging and they're still finding stuff. The researchers have found over 180 separate pits and they still haven't found the emperor. They think they will. They're like hoping. And I'm gonna look at your face when I tell you this. You guys ready? I'm gonna spotlight my face too, so you could see me. Not only do they have writings about this, so there's writing about it that they found, and then they dug it up and they're like, whoa, this is crazy. So there's 180 rooms, there's this army of clay soldiers. And what they read about is that his tomb is buried in a space surrounded by rivers of mercury. They haven't found it yet, but that's crazy. That's a great question. Charlie just asked, are there dead people in the clay? No, there's not dead people in the clay. The belief was that in the afterlife, the clay soldiers would become animated and they would come to life. But the clay soldiers are created with such detail and life size, right? That so that in the afterlife they could come to life. Let's take a tiny step backwards. If you remember in ancient Egypt, some of the Egyptian pharaohs were similarly paranoid and believed that if paintings were painted too realistically, that they would come to life. So this idea that artwork can then kind of gain like some kind of spiritual property and take over is not unique to the Qin dynasty and the Qin family. So when you have a ton of power, you get a little paranoid. And so it's pretty amazing. So 1974, that's like 30 plus 20, that's 46 years ago, they have found these terracotta warriors and they're still discovering more and more stuff. And who knows, some of you might be like, hey, I want to find that. I want to find rivers of mercury. That sounds pretty amazing. Just don't touch it. It's like toxic and it never leaves your system. So yeah, don't touch mercury. That's bad for you. Yes, Charlie. Charlie points out that's why the Egyptians drew all of their artwork sideways with just like the one eye, because if they drew the whole thing, then they believed that creature, animal, person would come out and like take over or assume the identity of the person being painted. So yeah, pretty crazy, right? A whole army of clay soldiers. So they're life size, they have incredible detail, and it's like an entire pottery army. iPhone is Mariah. What else? They're still looking for the emperor's tomb. Legend says that it's got those rivers of mercury around it. Again, don't touch that. Mercury is poisonous. Definitely like poison your brain, gets in your brain, like shuts that stuff down. And I think I've gone over these notes. Okay, sweet. Any questions before I go over the inquiry journal? Okay, so this is what we're gonna do. I'm gonna take a sip of water. You're gonna get a notebook. Or you can open up a tab and open up your inquiry journal for this week. Why not? We're doing it together right now. Or if you're making a poster, get your piece of paper because I'm gonna show you my poster that I made. If you already finished it, you're a boss. Good job. Then you can help correct me if I mess up or if I forgot something. That's really cool. Cool. All right. First things first, I'm going to show you my poster. I'm going to give you a little tour. Okay, so week 6. Ooh, wrong way. Well, actually, I'll zoom in. So here's the whole thing. And I have it in 3 sections. And you can choose to be artsy-fartsy however you want. So Emperor Qin, he had some big impacts using all the power. He unified the provinces and put them under his direct control. When I say unified, it's not like he sent them a courier pigeon and said, ooh, hey, let's be friends. No, he conquered them. He conquered them under his rule. Put them under his direct control, because remember, he's a legalist and he loves all that control. He had scholars modify and simplify the writing system. So the writing system became uniform, and the money system, which was also pretty cool, and their system of weights and measurements. You know what, even the wheel, because they made lots of roads, the wheel's axis, so if you've ever like seen under a car, there's that big metal thing, this is called an axis. The wheel's axis were standardized. So all of the carts had to have the exact same axis length. And that sounds like, well, what if I want bigger axes? The thing is, it fit in the road. Because when they made roads, they made little divots. So the wheels could fit. So sometimes control is bad. Sometimes control has a purpose. I would argue that control always has a purpose. It just depends on which side you're on. So they made it the same length. They made this the uniform length. Uniform. And the word uniform in this context means that we're all going to be the same. So if you wear a uniform to school, we all wear the same thing. If you have a uniform length, it's all the same. Cool. All right. So he used harsh punishments to force obedience, and he created a currency for all. So he created that currency, which kind of looks like this. It's a coin, and there's symbols, and I'm going to screw it up, but it looks a little bit like that. And before, the different provinces had different currencies, but he forced them very strictly, very harsh punishment, to use his. And that did make things easier eventually. Something that's not in your reading, nah, never mind, skip it. Okay, sorry. He had a massive building projects, including building an elaborate tomb for himself. And that's that terracotta army with those 180 plus rooms that they're still finding. Pretty amazing, right? So Qin gained power at 13 and then started conquering more territories by the time he was 23. All right, now, what ended the dynasty? So Qin died. Oh, I spelled this wrong. Q-I-N. I had such a hard time not putting the U next to the Q when I was writing. Qin died. Aristocrats and farmers were tired of the harsh punishments and the rigid rules. Then there was fighting, and then the Han Dynasty came into power. So now, there's the Silk Road. 3 things happened. I'm going to go over that in the inquiry journal. And then the last thing is population. Population went up because technology is increasing, and if there's more food, there's more babies staying alive, and people are happier. However, farmers were accustomed to handing down their land to their sons. Sorry, ladies, we still don't get anything. Which means that every time you had kids, like, your family land got smaller and smaller. So by the Han Dynasty, the average farmer only owned 1 acre of land. They couldn't make enough food to feed their families, so #family hungry. So the farmers, they ended up selling their land. So they used to have their own land, but now they're poor because they can't even feed themselves. So they sold their land to the wealthy aristocrats. If you remember, it's these guys up here, the Shi. Farmers were selling their land to the Shi, and they still worked the land as tenant farmers. So they just are now poor and working so that they don't starve. All right, cool. Any questions on the impact of Emperor Qi or population? What page on the inquiry journal? You mean what slide? Charlie? Thank you, Allie. It's 100. So real quick, if you're doing the inquiry journal and just going forward in the pages, then I can't grade that. So go to assignments, and under assignments, find week 6 inquiry journal and do it there. Because it's great that you can do it on your own, but I just can't see that. So hopefully that was helpful. Charlie, would you like me to show you where to find that? I can, if you want. Anybody?
Can you show the top right-hand corner of those notes again?
Of the poster?
Right. Yep.
Yes, and I will at the very end take a picture and post the notes on the classroom. But yeah.
No perfect. Okay, then that's great too. That's fine. That's all we needed.
Okay, great.
Thanks.
So, okay, so this is one example. Okay, so my son is moving, and I've had to move my desk like a few times where I'm actually on my kitchen table. Okay, so if you don't want to do the inquiry journal and you want to make a poster, I basically put everything I could think of on here. Your poster could focus more on one thing than another, and that's okay. It doesn't have to look like this. It can, but this is the kind of detail that we're looking for to show me that you did your reading and prepare you for the quiz. And if you read this section and you ever get stuck like, I don't know where to start, pull open the inquiry journal. And it's going to give you some structure of like, oh, okay, I'll fill that out, but make it pretty and add arrows and hashtags. Cool. All right. So Charlie, I am going to ask you to, let's see if I can find the chat. I'm having a hard time here. Okay, so Charlie, you're good? Okay, so Charlie doesn't need me to show me where to go to the inquiry journal. So I'm going to just start, and you guys can chime in as I am going through this. So if you did opt to do the inquiry journal, it's going to look something very much like this, except yours is going to be digital, right? So what is the impact of Emperor Qin? So he did a bunch of stuff. So he unified / conquered the provinces. which are those other areas, those other kingdoms around him. So he is in that Western kingdom, provinces. And he put them under their control and put them under his direct control. So traditionally, if you were to conquer an area, you would then also take care of their people. Qin, he thought that slowed him down, so he actually usually just disposed of, that's a fancy way of saying killed, all of the people who rose up against him. He didn't take them under his wing. So he did things differently. So his direct control, and so he was a tyrant. What we would call a tyrant. He's just thinking, you guys are all bad, and so we're going to control you. So he used harsh punishments. To force obedience. Force obedience. Let's go for another color. I'm going for blue. He had scholars modify and simplify the writing system. Scholars. And simplify. So it was the writing. It was also the lengths or the measurements. They made that uniform, and the currency. So the scholars didn't do that, but they did regulate the currency. So writing, lengths. I thought there was one more. It'll come to me. And then the last one is he had massive building projects. So the Great Wall of China, so the walls that he built is he actually connected walls that were already there. Walls that the other provinces and the other kingdoms have put up, he just started connecting them all. So he didn't build one massive wall. He just connected those. And it was for protection, to try to isolate their community even more. And we learned in lesson 1 2 weeks ago that China and the area that we now call China was already very isolated because of the landforms, because of the rivers and the mountains. Building projects, so roads, which we learned they had the uniform axis and the walls. Cool, yay! Oh, and his tomb. His tomb was a huge building project. Cool. All right, so the next part we're gonna look at is, why did it end? Well, Qin died. His son became king after him, but then he was told he was doing a bad job. And because honor and duty were so important, he was actually tricked into committing suicide. So it was a pretty awful thing. And then the next cousin became the ruler, because again, women can't hold power, and he was overthrown. So when Qin died, that charisma and that thirst for power and all of that, it was kind of the end of it. And when he first came to power, this is crazy, he's like, I want to rule for 100,000 generations. And a generations, depending who you're talking to, Thomas Jefferson said it was 18 to 20 years, because that's how long it takes, 18 to 21 years, depending on who you talk to. That's a long time. That's really ambitious. We will live for 100,000 generations. And that didn't happen. He conquered all these areas and was an emperor for like 15 years. So, you know, we always have big hopes, but good times. So the causes of his of the fall of the dynasty is he died, the farmers they were really tired of that harsh punishment. And if we remember, legalism says the only important people are the ruling class. Well, the farmers, they may not be important to Qin, but they definitely did have power. So the farmers were upset and tired of harsh punishment. So fighting erupted. I'm going to change colors. Fighting So just to give you some context, this is 10 times the population of Egypt. So the Egyptian pharaohs, they had slaves, they had their own citizens, they had their own people. And the area we're talking about that Qin controlled was 10 times that many. And if only these very elite few, these Shin, have power, and if they're the only people that matter, then there's a whole lot of people that are upset. But again, he didn't care. The most important people are the ruling class, not the needs of the people. They were just supposed to obey because they were evil. And then lastly, the Han Dynasty came into power. These are family names, by the way, came into power. All right. So the man did a lot of really powerful things by using a lot of force and fear and strict punishment. Building roads is great, right? But it's the forced labor that the farmers had to give that time to build that, you know? So things come at a cost. And I think as historians, when we look back, we can kind of appreciate, wow, look at those amazing, look at that Silk Road. The Silk Road's so cool. It goes all the way from the easternmost part of this dynasty all the way to the Mediterranean, so we can trade with Romans. And that's neat, just like the pyramids are neat. And how much of that is forced labor? So looking at the cost and looking at the what was created by it, I think is, you know, important for us to analyze as we look at disenfranchised people. Okay, so now the next part we're going to look at, and again, I will post these pictures on Google Classroom. How did land ownership change because of the increase in population? So I touched on this a smidge when I showed you my poster. So the population is going up because technology is increasing, food production is increasing. So if there's more food, there's more people. Population's up. So farmers were accustomed to giving land to their sons. So they divided it up. Sons, that shouldn't be possessive, ignore that. Now, as we have each generation had less and less land. And this got to the point by the Han Dynasty, by the Han farmers, they only had about 1 acre. And that's not enough to even feed your family. So this is before the time of supermarkets, right? You had to grow your own food, particularly if you were a farmer. And if you were an artisan, then you would trade your craft with farmers, but it would be that direct. So there would be some kind of, there wouldn't be a grocery store. There would be maybe a village market that you could go to. So they only had 1 acre, not enough to feed their family or to sell. So the consequence of this increase in population is farmers got really poor and had to lose their property. They had to sell, they didn't have to lose it, but yeah, they sold their land to these aristocrats. So farmers, they had to sell land to, I'm gonna put the fancy word, the shi, which were those landowning aristocrats, and work as tenant farmers. And a tenant farmer gives most of what they make to their landlord and keeps enough to feed their family. So they became poor and landless. All right, any questions on population? Let's see my little chat. 15 years is a long, Allie's like, 15 years is a long time. No, it's not. Okay, Callie, is it less blurry now? Sorry about that. Okay, sweet. Sorry about that. Thank you. Allie, any parent listening, these kids are like, 15 years, that's forever. Oh, goodness. I have clothes that are 15 years old. Good times. All right, the Silk Road. Mrs. Kirby, is it called the Silk Road because the silk is on the road or because the road is made of silk? Any guesses? No. Allie's like, yes. I'm gonna scooch this up just a tiny bit. You guys okay still? Allie's like, yes, it is. So they traded silk, and that was a pretty awesome thing. So we're looking at the results of expanding trade and development of the Silk Road during the Han Dynasty. Now we're going to use this organizer to support and analyze the text. Okay, so the Silk Road prompted trade between China to the west, to the Mediterranean. All right, so we have China, which is these provinces are all under one rule now, one emperor who has that mandate of heaven. And oh God, I forgot to tell you something. It's okay. Moving on. Silk Road, trade. So that's the buying and selling of stuff. Okay. So trade routes opened up an exchange of both goods and ideas. Both goods and ideas between China and other regions. Because if someone comes to trade with you, you also see what they're wearing. You also see what, how they talk, what kind of money they use, any kind of custom. So when you're trading to get money, right? Because they're trying to make a profit, trying to make a living, you're going to be exposed to more things. So they are now exposed. And not in a bad way, but they were so isolated for so long. So both goods and ideas are opening up. And when I say goods, I mean like food, we're talking stuff, fabric, oops, there we go, food, stuff, fabric, like silk, right? Also, crossbows were huge. Qin totally used crossbows all the time. Qin loved crossbows. Okay, I don't have a phone yet, so you have to wait. So the next thing is China's culture was no longer isolated. China is no longer isolated. Isolate, that's an E, sorry for my handwriting. And it would impact other regional cultures. China was exposed to new cultures and new inventions and new products and food. So new cultures, new food, New inventions. And then other places saw like, oh, hey, China, what's that stuff? You're like, oh, that's paper. You're like, what? And they did trade for horses. China loved horses. Oh my gosh. And they traded for big, fast horses. Did you know that? Did you know that, Natalie? Horses.
I actually think I got a question wrong on it because I put horses in all caps.
No, I think you're good. Points for that. Lots of horses. Well, because they used horses not only for domestic purposes, for farming and transportation, but they have battle horses. And they wanted strong, big horses. And in Europe, they make really big, strong horses. All right, next one. And then they even traded, oh, that's actually my last one. So this was my next note. Sorry, I got ahead of myself. They traded for strong. They traded for strong horses from the West after General Quyon went searching for allies. So I'm just gonna put the traded for horses. I'm gonna see if I can draw a horse. Okay, here's my horse. Let's see. Natalie should probably do this for me. Okay, we got like a, okay, so far so good. I think I might start using a pencil soon. No, I think I lost it. Dang it. Okay, that's all I've got. And you're gonna have blue eyes because you do. Okay, there's my horse. All right, tell Natalie that horses were pets. Okay, Parker told me to tell you that. All right, awesome. Any questions about the Silk Road and its effect on China and the Mediterranean? Other things they changed? Paper, the language. All good stuff, being exposed to new ideas. Nice drawing, thanks. Thanks, dear, appreciate you. All right, so it is 10:48. I am going to dismiss you if you don't have any questions. So you can go. If you do, please stay. Otherwise, if I have you for math, I'll see you at 1. If not, I look forward to checking everything off. Your McGraw-Hill work, if you did the poster, make sure you either email it or post it to the assignment. Ta-da! Did I dye my hair? No, because I can't dye my hair, but I do have gray hair now, which is crazy. So I used to be blonde. When I first met you, I had a ton of blonde highlights. And then those grew out. Bye, Holly, see you at 1. So I don't know, I think I'm just gonna keep it and slowly go gray. We'll see. I think you're brilliant. Bye. Ta-da! Gavin has money. Good job. Charlie, Mariah is iPhone. She's in my 5th period history class. Bye, Allie. All right. Gavin, what are you gonna do with all that money, man? Keep telling me you got all this money. Go get Legos, nice. We can go to River Cats game. Do you ever go to River Cats games? I did just break your heart, didn't I? Yeah. We can go to Korea and go to one of their games. There's no S in Lego. Yeah, that's funny. Did you know that in Great Britain, instead of saying, oh, I have math class, they say maths. They add the S. Maths. I have maths. What? Yeah, really, really, really. Maths. Okay, bye. Bye, everybody. I'll see you later. If you have, well, actually, I'll stay on for 10 more minutes until 11. If you have questions, just put them in the chat. I'm going to take pictures of all the work we did together and post them on Google Classroom. Gabe, I miss you, my little Spartan. I love your smile and how fun you are. Ooh, are you doing your tech deck still? No? Okay. Okay, bye. If you're staying, stay. If not, see you later. I'm going to turn my camera off just so I can take pictures, but I'm still here. You can still talk to me. And I'm going to stop